Please stand for prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in this council chambers for the betterment of our fellow citizens, lead us that we may do all things well. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we move on with the rest of the meeting, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence for Cindy Shipp, who was a former dispatcher here in the village of St. Bernard, also the wife of retired Service Department employee Jerry Shipp, and also for Jenny Holt, who was the wife of retired Fire Department employee Dave Holt. We ask you to keep them and their families in your prayers. Thank you. This time, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Present.
Mr. Brickwick?
Here.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Here.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Here.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Here.
Mr. Schultmeyer?
Present.
Let the record show 6 members are present, 1 member is absent. Members of council, what is your pleasure of the reading of the last minutes?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to dispense with the reading of the written minutes of the last council meeting.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld, to dispense with the reading of the last minutes. Are there any remarks? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Members of council, are there any errors or corrections to the minutes as submitted? If not, the minutes will stand as submitted. Move to reports of city officials. Mayor Stuchel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, good evening. I'd first off like to offer my deepest sympathy to both the Shipp and Holt families and ask that the community please keep them in their thoughts and prayers. I would also like to ask that we have a moment of silence for the senseless deaths that occurred at Robb Elementary School in Texas. Thank you again. If you'd please keep these young souls and their families in your prayers. I'd also like to remind everyone that we will be honoring our veterans from St. Bernard who gave the ultimate sacrifice on Memorial Day, Monday, May 30th at 10 a.m. in the lower level parking lot in front of City Hall. So please come out and join our community as we honor those individuals. The CIC will be announcing the official sponsorship of the Go Vibrant walking routes in St. Bernard very soon, and you'll soon be seeing signs being placed around the village, and we'll be very excited to share this program with you. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Auditor, Ms. Brickwick.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Auditor's Office has prepared Resolution 3-2022. This is the resolution for council approving Paul Schultmeyer from the Rec Department going out for a grant for an all-purpose track down at Ross Park. We also prepared Ordinance 16-2022, which is providing additional appropriations, $10,000 into 2K2 miscellaneous and 2010 park maintenance for $286,000. This will go towards the remaining balance for all the park equipment we're replacing, which therefore goes to Ordinance 17, which is the contract for the service director to go out for a contract with Bluegrass Recreation Sales and Installation for all of the playground equipment. I'd also like everyone to know that the state auditors are in here doing their state audit. So far, everything's gone pretty smoothly, and so hopefully we'll get that done soon. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Director Law, Ms. Van Valkenburg.
No report.
Thank you. Treasurer, Mr. Unruh.
Thank you, Mr. President. I went to my mailbox tonight because I know the auditor threw in the report for me, and it's not there. So I will have to get back with her, and I guess someone mistakenly grabbed the wrong mailbox on me again. So I'll get that to you next time. Sorry.
All right. Thank you. Safety and Service Director, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Go Local Roger Bacon Day was extremely helpful, and I cannot thank the students and staff enough. I do hope they will return next year. Thanks again. To my community, I took a trip to reminisce and create new memories. When I arrived, I took notice of things that have changed. I will miss some of the things that are no longer there, but enjoyed the new things that altered what was there. I guess what I'm trying to say is that we will never stop change, regardless of why the change took place. After reading articles of what occurred, there is a beetle that can only lay eggs in a fresh burned tree. Where I see chaos, the universe appears to have everything well organized. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Is there a report from Tax Administrator? Nope. All right, we'll move to reports of standing committees. Finance, Mr. Taberky.
No report.
Thank you. Safety, Mr. Brickwig.
Yes, Mr. President, I would just like to thank Mary Day, who is she's a developmental director with Pro Seniors, who attended the Block Watch meeting last week and instructed the seniors of different scams and what to watch out for. So I'd like to thank her for attending the Block Watch. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Service, Ms. Hausfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight I have the Service Department report for April 2022. There were 35 trucks placed at residence, 31 dumpsters placed at residence, 122 special pickups at residence, 192.89 tons of garbage taken to the landfill. And as far as recycling report, there were 32.46 tons of recycling material, 7,100 pounds of scrap metal. Thank you. That concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any report for public improvements? Nope. Laws, contracts, and claims, Ms. Bettinghouse.
No report.
Thank you. Marketing, Mr. Ray Culbertson.
Thanks, Mr. President. I just wanted to mention a couple of upcoming events for the St. Bernard Historical Society. There will be a second walking tour of St. Bernard Sears Homes. This tour will take place on Saturday, June 18th, and the check-in is at 9 a.m. at City Hall. Advanced registration is required by June 10th. Cost is $20 for members and $25 for non-members. The next scheduled Historical Society meeting is on Monday, June 20th at 7 p.m. in the upper level of the municipal building. Jim Henningkamp will be leading a presentation on St. Bernard watering holes. And hey, who would want to miss that? And then I'd like to thank Tom Paul. I know I've been bombarding him with complaints about high grass, and it's pretty amazing how quickly they're getting taken care of. And then just wondering out loud, is there anything we can do to streamline this process? I know we have to wait, show it's a certain height, then wait for Robert to come in, I believe. Is there anything we can cut down on the time? Because some of these yards are just out of control.
Mr. President,
Mr. Paul.
if you'll recall, we streamlined it 3 years ago, and we only have to wait 8 days after they get the certified letter. Robert, actually, instead of sending a letter and waiting, he now sends a letter and the certified letter at the same time. So there is a waiting period, and I do believe that people know the gray areas, so they wait till the very last minute and then cut it, and that way it gets carried through, and they may only have to cut it 2 or 3 times a summer. That being said, Cincinnati, from what I understand, sees long grass, they fine them $300, and that's it. Or they go to court. So it's a citation, actually.
Mr.
But I don't
President.
know if you want to go that route.
Mr. Culbertson.
Tom, do I appreciate you responding so quickly, and the one we complained about yesterday was cut today, so it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Business and Industry, Mr. Schultmeyer.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Stegman had submitted the Committee of the Whole to Administration and Council. There are no communications this evening, so Clerk, could you please give the first reading of Resolution Number 3, 2022?
Resolution number 3, 2022, authorizing the use of village to file an application for Ohio Department of Natural Resources grant and declaring an emergency.
Members of Council, you've heard the first reading of Resolution Number 3, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of Resolution Number 3, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend with the second and third reading of Resolution 3, 2022. Are there any remarks?
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
just curious, in Section 3, it says we have to obligate the funds required to satisfactorily complete the proposed project.
Are we going to do this if we get the grant or not? If
Mr.
we don't get the grant, are we still going to do it?
Mr. President,
Ms. Brickwood.
what that pertains to is I have to send them a copy of our budget and everything like that. If you remember when Paul Schulmeyer explained it, that they're going to do, it'll be the whole grant. So if we don't get the grant, that would be something you'd have to look into later. This is basically the resolution that they asked us to type up. So I have to just certify that we have funds. So my guess is we would do the project and get reimbursed. I would suggest that you amend it and take out use of, I'm not sure, in the title.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
make a motion, we do amend that on the title, take out the use of, so authorize the village to file an application.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
First off, are there any other remarks? All right, so there's a motion to suspend second and third. So can I have you withdraw that?
I will withdraw my motion.
Withdraw your second?
I'll withdraw.
And if you would redo it with the amended, that would.
Mr. President?
Just to cover everything. Ms. Bettinghouse.
I make a motion to suspend with the amended reading of Resolution Number 3, 2022.
Mr. President,
Mr. DeBerke.
we didn't vote on amending the resolution.
I was just gonna, we talked about it. All right, who's on first here?
Yeah.
All right. So, is everyone okay with amending it and removing the use of, is it the use of? Okay. Use of. So you'll make make a motion to suspend, and Ms. Housefeld, so a motion by Mr. DeBerke, second by Ms. Housefeld to remove the use of on resolution number 3, 2022. Are there any remarks on that? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So ordered. Then Ms. Bettinghouse, motion,
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of the amended Resolution Number 3, 2022.
And I'll second that.
all right. I feel better now.
Now we get all right.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Housefeld to suspend the second and third reading of amended resolution number 3, 2022. Are there any remarks on that? If not, clerk, please call the roll on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Ms. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt amended Resolution Number 3, 2022.
I'll second that.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt amended resolution number 3, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Amended resolution number 3, 2022 is adopted as read. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance 16, 2022?
Ordinance number 16, 2022, authorizing and directing the auditor to provide additional appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 16, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of Ordinance Number 16, 2022.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Ms. Hausfeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance number 16, 2022. Are there any remarks? Since there is no one in the audience, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
I make a motion to adopt Ordinance Number 16, 2022.
I'll second it.
Motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, second by Mr. Ray Culbertson to adopt ordinance number 16, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickwig?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 16, 2022 is adopted as read.
Mr. President,
Mr. Taberky?
before we read ordinance 17 for the first time, there's a couple mistakes in there. An ordinance authorizing the service director to enter into a contract with Bluegrass Recreation Sales and installation for purchase of playground equipment.
Oh, you missed, you got the wrong one.
We could get it out there.
Okay, I got it here. There's two copies. That's all. Never mind. And turnout gear.
All right.
Bless you.
All right. Clerk, will you please give the first reading of ordinance number 17, 2022?
Ordinance number 17, 2022, an ordinance authorizing the service director to enter into a contract with Bluegrass Recreation Sales and Installation for the purchase of playground equipment and declaring an emergency.
Members of council, you've heard the first reading of ordinance number 17, 2022. What is your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Benninghouse?
I make a motion to suspend with the second and third reading of ordinance number 17, 2022.
A motion by Ms. Benninghouse, seconded by Ms. Housefeld to suspend the second and third reading of ordinance number 17, 2022. Are there any remarks? Not, clerk, will you please call the roll on suspension?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Members of council, what is your pleasure on adoption?
Mr. President,
Ms. Bettinghouse?
make a motion to adopt ordinance number 17, 2022.
Second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Hausfeld to adopt ordinance number 17, 2022. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Taberky?
Aye.
Mr. Brickway?
Aye.
Ms. Hausfeld?
Aye.
Mrs. Bettinghouse?
Aye.
Mr. Ray Culbertson?
Aye.
Mr. Schulmeyer?
6 ayes, no nays, motion carries. Ordinance number 17, 2022 is adopted as read. Does anyone on council have anything under old business? Does anyone on council have anything under new business?
Mr. President,
No.
I failed to mention a very important date that will occur this Saturday for the opening, the season opening of the Aquatic Center. Failed to mention that, so actually it opens at 11 a.m. and will be open until 7 p.m. So please come out and enjoy the fresh water and come out and get your pool passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else under new business?
Mr. President?
Ms. Brickway?
I forgot to mention, I'm continuing to work on the summer budget, and I wanted to get council and the mayor's opinion on this. With all the scheduling going on, I'm a little concerned if anybody has a vacation or what. Even though you don't vote on this summer, what my goal is to get the budget to you probably in the next few days, and possibly have the public hearing on the 9th. Like I said, you don't vote on it, so if you can't make that meeting, it's okay, but I would like to at least do it on the 9th so I can get it sent to the county. I can say from working on it, there's not a whole lot of added expenses at this point, and the income is up, so it's going to be easily a balanced budget, so there's no panic over that. But I just wanted to get your opinion, because I have to take an ad out in the newspaper, and I have to do that 10 days ahead of time. So what I was going to ask you is if we could possibly have the public hearing at 7:30 or 8 o'clock during the, somewhat in the middle, in case you had some questions you wanted to ask, like from 7 to 7:30, and if that would be okay with everybody.
Mr. President?
Ms.
I know
Hausfeld?
you won't.
God willing, as long as my
Right.
mom's okay,
It's no big
I
deal.
will be out of town.
You'll still have the budget, so. Okay, I will talk to the mayor later on and see if that will work. Okay, thank you.
I will list it on the agenda under you, and then it'll be time to be determined, okay? Anyone else under new business?
Mr. President,
Mayor's turn.
Peggy, so for that night, I don't know if it's possible, if you were talking about having it at the end, is it something that we could do at the beginning? Mark, the consultant for, that's going to potentially be coming that night, so I can confirm that they're trying to actually get some other individuals, as far as village administrators and managers, to come that night as well. So I need to just double check if we're having some guests that night, whether or not it's possible to do your portion in the beginning.
Mr. President, I have no problem doing it in the beginning, and it's just if you have any questions. And everybody seems to be a lot of people seem to be afraid to use email. You can email me on your own and ask me any question you want. It has nothing to do with a public meeting thing. So I can still do it at 7 o'clock. I can send it out to everybody, and if anybody has any questions, go ahead and answer them if that's okay with everybody. Like I said, it's going to be a very easy balanced budget. This is just a projected budget. I mean, we're gonna be changing it for the real budget. So I'm okay with that if you're okay with that.
Mr. President?
Yes, Phil.
Is that a definitely done thing for yours, Jonathan?
Mr. President,
Mayor Stuchel.
it's almost a done thing because of the timing, so I cannot help that. But if indeed, unless we have a special meeting outside of the regular, but I basically trying to work within the timing, and we kind of mapped it out. We could not adjust that day, but I'll let you know for sure if something changes.
Mr. President?
Ms.
You
Pepper.
could watch it on your phone if you want. That's what I've done when I've been in. I'll show you. It's not that hard, but that's what I've done, like when I was in the hospital. Okay.
You guys know me in computers, right?
All right, anyone else under new business? Nobody in the audience. What is council's pleasure on the absent member this evening?
President,
Ms. Bettinghouse.
I make a motion to excuse the absent member.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
A motion by Ms. Bettinghouse, seconded by Ms. Housefeld to excuse the absent member. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. The next committee of the whole then will be Thursday, June 9th, beginning at 7 p.m. with the public hearing for the 2023 budget. This time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Ray Culbertson.
make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that, Mr. President.
Motion by Mr. Ray Culbertson, second by Ms. Housefeld to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.